Okay, hi everybody, my name is Encore. This is my game. It's called Financial Genius. So, first let's start out with some of the things I changed from the prototype. The first thing, of course, is I expanded the game to these corners right here, and I made them zones for each of the players. So, this is a 4-player game, and I divide them up into different colors, which was the green, blue, red, and yellow. And another thing I changed is that I created my own spawns. So, instead of using from a different game, which was part of the assignment. So there's 4 spawns, and the $ represents, because this is a game about financial skills and how to handle money. Let's see, what else did I change? So the point of these semicircles are that each player, this is kind of like a designated zone for each player. So this is where they start, and in order to win the game, after they've collected, all their items, they also must come back to their start stop, which is also a finish stop, or spot, sorry. And that represents that they finished the game, and whoever was able to get all their pieces to their assigned object that they have to build, and then come back to the spot, essentially wins the game. And so each of these spots have, each of these corners have 4 spots, right? So since the game goes in a clockwise direction, for example, if you come into the green corner, you go to this ignition spot, and then you go over here. Okay, so so all the players will go around here, and so each of these 4 spots in every different corner has 3 spots that are disadvantages to other players, and then 1 spot that may have a little advantage, that they don't get hurt from and they actually can benefit from. So for example, on the green spot, if a player lands here, they have to pay the owner $10 from their own wallet, essentially. And then there's another one that says pay owner 5 times your roll. So based on the roll that you or based on the number you rolled in order to get to the spot, you pay the owner. So that whoever has the green essentially is the owner. You have to pay him or her 5 times the amount of money that you've rolled. And then this one is receive a payment of 50 from the owner. So this is the benefit spot out of the 4. And this, will give him, the player who lands on it, the green player must pay him or her $50 of their own money. And then there's another one, invest $100 to the owner's company. Okay, so every player has their own corner with similar and a little bit different disadvantages and advantages, but essentially the similar ones. Okay, so that's one of the major changes. The other major change is so just make sure these are zones, right? So these are like each player's kind of tower zone, their property, and this is what can benefit them a lot. Okay. Another thing I did was so I had to add $5 bills, and I also made my own money because I used a different game's money before, but I made my own money this time. So I added $5 bills because one of my rules is that, like, if you decide not to buy a piece, either you don't have enough money or you're saving up to get a piece later on, then so for example, if somebody wants this piece or lands on this piece, but he does not want to pay for it because it's not his or her piece required for their object, or they don't have enough money, they must pay 10% of the price. So this individual would have to pay $20, and they would place it in the middle. Okay, and this would just be a free money spot. So, for example, if somebody lands right here on this spot, they would get the money that's in the middle, and that accumulates from all other players. You know, paying from various things. Okay. So, also like this, yeah. Okay. And what else did I change? So yeah, remember if you don't buy the piece or the part, you have to pay 10% of that price and place it in the middle. Okay, so each spot on the board now has a rent that is placed on it. So for example, when somebody buys it, it ends up becoming a free space, right? But I realized through gameplay that it was becoming very it got kind of boring and slow, because when people would land on certain spots, nothing would happen, right? So I just made a kind of default price, that because I didn't want to complicate it too much. So if there is a part or space that is owned by somebody already, then and another player lands on it, then he or she has to pay the owner of that part a $10 from their own money, directly goes to the player. Okay, so that's just to kind of keep the money flowing throughout the game, and also, you know, making sure the game is interesting and you know, fast paced throughout the entire time. Okay, and another spot I changed. Let's see. Oh yeah, so in order to win the game, a player, of course, must, you know, gather all his parts to the to whatever object he or she is building, right, based on the lists. So yeah, they must gather all the parts, and then they have to go back to their designated zone. So for example, this green guy, if he has the car, okay, and he finally lands on his last piece, he gets it, he has all his parts, he has to travel back all the way to the board and back to the finish line, okay? And once the player does that, then he or she is the winner. And I left the X over here, kind of to do some, you know, it gives a player a chance to decide what direction they want to go, or if they want to take a shortcut. And of course, I left pretty much the same, you know, the same spots on it, with the same requests that the game asks you to do. But yeah, so it just kind of keeps the game moving, gives players an option to go a different direction, take shortcuts, take some risk. Kind of, you know, part of the, cause I'm trying to, you know, copy how the real world works, how the real economy, how investing, how the money flow, where things happen unexpectedly, and sometimes you want to buy something, and, you know, negotiation. So just kind of, you know, gives players another option to go, another route. So yeah, and also, yeah, you want to make sure that you get all the way around and back to the finish spot without going bankrupt, okay? So Yeah, the rules, just make sure the rules start, everybody rolls the dice once. Whoever has the highest number, of course, um, becomes the first person to go, and etc. Like second highest, second person, third highest, third person to go, and I don't know. Let's see, what other spots are there? Um, so there's some spots like in the X. There's always going to be things that request a player to either do an action with another player, or he or she has to pay the bank something, um, or they get something from the bank, right? So there's benefits, disadvantages, and also challenges that may become benefits or disadvantages. So let's just go over some of the spots. So there's miss a turn, which is simple. Player misses a turn. Negotiated part right here means that a player would, so whoever lands on it, they can, if another player has one of their pieces that they want, they can negotiate a price, and then whoever, or once both sides negotiate a price that they believe is fair, they roll the dice, or the player who landed on the landed on the space, sorry, rolls the dice, and if he or she gets a 1 through 3, then they win, and they get to trade with the player the price that they requested. If the player rolls a 4 through 6, then the player must pay the initial owner how much the price he or she was asking for. And oh yeah, if his green player entered his own zone, then he would not be affected by any of the spots. He could just pass through. Okay, so only other players are affected to other people's zones except their own zone. And there's this lucky or unlucky spot, and that spot requires the player. So if the green player lands on it and it was the yellow player's turn, then, and the yellow player went before him or her, before the green player, then they kind of go in a duel, and they both roll the dice again, and whoever gets the highest gets paid $100 by the person who rolled the lower number. Okay, that's simple. And yeah, that's pretty much all the spaces, I believe. So there's like one of these right here is another pay owner 5 times your roll, which I already said, I believe. And yeah, okay. So let's see what else. And there's a no play spot, which just skips a turn. Nothing happens to it. There's a miss a turn spot right here, and that, just the player who lands on it just gets skipped in the next round. And then there is a trade places turn, which is, where'd it go? Right here. Right here, trade places with another player. So that's just one spot, and the player who lands on it can trade places with anybody on the board. Doesn't matter. Okay. Okay, so let's start the game. let's just do like a little run through. So each player will randomly select, right, one of these colors, or from these four cards that have nothing on the back. Okay, so the player will select these, or it'll be randomly shuffled. Everybody will select one, and based on the color you get are these cards right here. Okay, and that's what you gotta build, and that's also the spawn you are assigned to, and the thing you gotta build. Okay. And then each player receives $1,500 in total at the beginning of the game. They get one $500, so $1,500, $700 in 100 bills. And then four $50 bills. And seven $10 bills. And six $5 bills. Okay, so each player will get that. So yellow player will get it. Okay, the blue player will get it also. Okay, and same thing with the red player. Get his money. Okay. And there. Okay, and of course they all get their, kind of checklist card to make sure that they know what pieces they need to get. Cars here. Also, remember when they choose these random cars to decide where they decide what they have to build, that is the location at which they start. Okay, so blue and semi-truck. Okay, good. So now everybody will roll the dice once. So save green, he got a 6. Blue got a 3. Red got a 1, and yellow got a 4. So it'd be green, blue, yellow, and red. So that's how the turns would be, in the order it would go. Okay. So yeah, we're all gonna go in a clockwise direction. Okay, so green would go first. You got 1. So we start here, and we go in clockwise direction. So it would be here. And because he's in a spot, he gets unaffected. Okay, now I'm just gonna go, what did I say? Blue, I think. So blue got 5. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he landed on the car suspension. And he has a boat, so he has to decide whether he wants to buy it or not. Since it's the beginning of the game, maybe he'll pass right now, okay? Because nobody else has it. He wants to make sure he has enough of his money supply still. So he'll pass right now, okay? So now it's yellow's turn. got a 4. So we're at the start spot. So I'm gonna go 1. Remember clockwise. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You got a semi truck with wheels. So let's just say, oh, she isn't not too expensive. So he or she decides to pay and buy it. So we'll give the $100. Give it to the bank over here. And they got the semi-truck wheels. So we'll come back over here. Because the semi-truck was green, look over here, look, semi-truck wheels right here, okay? So we give it to the yellow player. Good. Okay, so now it is going to be red's turn. So red is going to roll. We got a 2. So clockwise. So 1, 2. Since it's his own spot, remember, or since it's its own zone, he doesn't get affected by it. Okay, now we're gonna go to blue, I believe is blue's turn. No, green's turn, sorry. So rolls 5, clockwise, so 1, 2. So now at this corner, you can decide either to go straight across the through the middle of the board, or continue through the circle. Since it's the beginning of the game still, there's still parts available. We're gonna go continue through the circle. So 3, 4, 5. So car brakes, he landed on car brakes. Let's just say he decides to buy it because, why not? We're still in the beginning of the game. So 200 comes from his account and throws it into the bank. Okay? And we'll get the part, got car brakes. So car brakes was red. And right here, car brakes, okay? So it keeps that card. Okay. Now it will be red's turn, I believe. Roll the dice. Got 1. Great. So red will move clockwise again, remember? Semi-truck brakes. Say we pass it. Oh shoot, I forgot. Sorry. So somebody else said pass. I forgot. He had to pay 10% to the free money bank. So I forgot who it was before. I apologize for that. But we're gonna do a semi-truck. Say the red passes on it. So he's gotta pay 10% of that, which is $35, right? So red will take 35, so we'll take 3 10s and a 5. Okay, and this will go to the free money area. Okay. Okay. So now it's yellow's turn. Got a 1. Transmission for car. Let's say he passes, okay? So you gotta pay 10% again of 10% of 150 is 15. So 10 and a 5 goes to free money. Okay. Now it is green's turn. Roll the dice. 2, 1, 2. He's got to land on the boat, the port of the boat. Let's say he buys it. So that's 200. So we'll take 200 from his account, give it to the bank, and we'll get the port. report. Okay. Okay, now it's the red's turn. So red will roll. Let's get a higher number for this guy. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so he landed on miss a turn. So we're gonna skip red's turn in the next round, okay? Okay, so that just kind of gives you a little, a little bit of how the game goes. I'm going to kind of describe more about the other options that players can go. So, say for example, yellow, who has house. Say all these parts are gone, taken, and one part he really needs that's available still is wood for the house. That's still available and not taken yet, okay? So, say if yellow is over here right now, and he decides, oh, should I go continue this circle or take a shortcut that may lead me to wood for the house? So this is kind of one of the the strategies and thought process that players have to do in this game, because there are challenges to this zone that may be good or bad. And unfortunately, since he's going to go straight through, he's going to land here, and he will still have to go through reds, which is the red player. He'll have to go through his danger zone. Okay, so let's say he does it. We'll roll. Gets a 1. This is congrats on promotion, so he'll collect the money. So again, my spots are very, self-explanatory, and whatever they ask you to do, whatever they say on it is written right there. And so they'll either get money, or they'll lose money, or they'll have to do the challenge, okay? Okay, so let's say if a player, let's say blue he keeps going around, right? He goes around and goes around. Negotiated part. Remember, we did that already. The player, he can choose whatever player he wants. If he has a part of it, if somebody has a part that the blue player of the boat, right? Because the blue player has a boat. If somebody has his part, he can negotiate a price, and they roll. If he rolls a 1 through 5, or 1 through 3, sorry, then the price that the blue player must pay for the part is what the blue player wanted to pay. If it's 4 through 6, then the blue player must pay the red player's asking price. And let's see, another thing would be, there's also spots, random spots on the board that say, for example, right here, receive 100 from the bank. So that's just one thing, allows them to have a little more, added to their bank account, because there's no like pass through grow like in Monopoly, where every time you pass, when you go through the board once, you get paid a certain amount of money. There's nothing like that here. Okay, so there's a limit to the amount of money you have, which is one of the skills you must have in money management. Making sure that you invest your money at certain times, at the right time, and making sure that you don't ever run out. Because if you run out and you go bankrupt, you lose the game. Okay, you can't even continue the game because you went bankrupt. You don't have any assets anymore, and unfortunately, you must lose everything. And if somebody does go bankrupt, then all the parts go back onto the board for the other players to play with. Okay. Let's see what else is there. And oh yeah, just make sure the spots that are on the corners are all similar in each corner, right? They're just different locations of of the corners. And yeah, so just make sure you try to get all your parts. And it's random. There's no, you can plan on, how to use your money, but I think the like about a game is that you always have to think, because you always have to think about the next step, because first of all, it's by chance because of the dice roll, and you have to constantly look at what the other players are the moves that they're making, because if they buy something that's of your item, then you have to try to get something of theirs so that you can possibly initiate a trade, or negotiate a trade if hopefully you land on the negotiated part spots, which is here and right here. Okay. And yeah, so I think it's a simple game. It's challenging because you gotta constantly think, you gotta constantly pay attention to the board and what's going on. You also gotta make sure that you're keeping an eye and track of your assets. And I think it's a good game for the youngsters also to, try to understand how to negotiate, how to use your money wisely and stuff like that. And it kind of represents, real life, because of how, like, for example, we have this pot right here, which is purchase insurance. Just little things like that. There is, like the investing in somebody's company, and which is part of, stock exchange and mutual funds and stuff like that. Yeah. So, yeah, I think, since I think almost every spot except like the no play spots require some sort of money exchange, which constantly keeps the money flowing throughout the game. Remember, even if somebody has already owned the spot, they still must pay. There's a rent fee of $10. Yeah, there must be a rent fee of $10 paid to the person who owns the part. Okay. And yeah, I think I've explained all the different spots on my game. And I had fun building it. I still believe that there could be maybe a few improvements to the game, but I think I've tried my best to do the best I could based on my, artistic skills and stuff like that. But yeah, so this is a game. Make sure you get all your pieces. Mechanics is roll the dice. There's spots on the board that can be advantage or disadvantages to each players. So thank you. I had fun in this class. Thanks for the opportunity for allowing me to try something new, and I had a great time. And thank you for your feedback and help throughout my process.